We've worked closely together in various aspects of our portfolios, not just in media and IT, but also, as you would all know, we are both building fibre to the home broadband networks. But today, we're here to tell telecommunication companies that enough is enough. The draft report we are releasing makes clear that consumers have been ripped off when using their mobile phones when travelling between our countries. The prices people have to pay when they make a phone call, send a text, or go online when they travel are frankly obscene. There are some shocking examples of this highlighted in today's papers. A mother who was a primary carer for her daughter with a long-term illness received a phone bill of over $4,000 after a holiday in New Zealand, more than the holiday cost just about. She used a phone simply to stay in contact with the doctors, the specialists and social workers during her holiday, and she had no idea she would get home and her phone bill will be so ridiculously high. Another example in the papers is a student who asked for global roaming for a phone for a holiday to Malaysia. She wasn't informed of the cost, and she was stung when she returned home with a bill of over $9,000 for just 2 weeks. So when consumers are paying more for using their phones on holiday than for the holidays themselves, there is something clearly wrong. This draft report shows that margins made by Australian telcos have been higher than 1,000%. 1,000%. As I said, this is obscene. So since the Australian and New Zealand governments announced our investigation, not surprisingly, these margins have come down. But Australian telcos have generously dropped from 1,000% margin to 300% margin. So for this reason, the draft report recommends action by our respective governments. Options include legislation or regulation in both our countries, including the introduction of wholesale and retail price caps. But Australians aren't just getting stung when they travel to New Zealand, they're getting stung whenever they use their phones overseas. And that's why today I'm also directing the Australian Communications and Media Authority to make an industry standard. This standard will ensure that Australians receive an alert on their mobile phone when they land overseas, and this will allow consumers to find out how much they'll be charged when they make a call, how much they'll be charged when they send a text, or how much they'll be charged when they go online. And most importantly, these alerts will allow Australian travellers to opt out of using these services. So I've directed the ACMA to have this standard in operation within 12 months, and the ACMA will consult with stakeholders in preparing the standard, which will apply to all countries where Australians use mobile roaming. So let me be clear about this. Australians deserve to know how much they're being gouged by mobile operators when they use their mobile phones overseas, and they deserve the ability to say no. Greater transparency in pricing will increase the incentive for mobile operators to compete on price and result in a better deal for Australians travelling overseas. So now I'd like to pass to Amy to give a perspective from New Zealand.
Well, thank you, Stephen, and can I just say it is a great pleasure to be here this morning to join with Senator Conroy in releasing this report, and I want to congratulate him for the work that he has done to get us to this point, and obviously I'm picking up the work of my predecessor, Stephen Joyce, who initiated this inquiry with Senator Conroy. As the Senator has said, these are issues that we have to address. The Trans-Tasman market is by far the most important to New Zealanders and to Australians. My visit here is one of 80,000 visits every month that New Zealanders pay to Australia, and certainly equivalent numbers of Australians join us in New Zealand to learn how to play rugby. So, so while we are travelling so freely between each other's countries, while we are increasingly reliant on our mobile devices, not just anymore for simple activity, but increasingly to stay in touch with our families, to conduct our business as part of our everyday lives, lives, it is important to both of our governments to know that New Zealanders and Australians have access to fair and reasonable pricing, and most importantly to be aware of what charges they will face so that, as Senator Conroy has said, they can make the decisions about whether or not they wish to avail themselves of those services. So the release of this draft report is an important occasion. Certainly the feedback I have had from stakeholders across New Zealand is that the process has been a necessary one, it has been a transparent and a fair one, and it has been very interesting to see the impact that the carrying out of this investigation has had on behaviour. In New Zealand, I can tell you that when we started the investigation, our consumers were facing mobile data charges of around $30 a megabit. During the course of our investigation being carried out, we have seen that dropped to 50 cents a megabit. So there is clearly a lot of room for the industry to move, as Senator Conroy has mentioned. And certainly the view of the Senator and I is that we have to continue to ensure that that sort of pressure stays on the industry.